In 2008, Marvel Studios had $500 million in debt, one shot at survival, and a shortlist of actors for their most important role. Every name on that list was safe, bankable, insurable. Robert Downey Jr. was not on that list. He had been arrested 4 times, served real prison time, been fired from a hit television show after a drug arrest in a Burger King parking lot. No studio in Hollywood would insure him. No director wanted the liability. He was, by every measurable industry standard, finished. Jon Favreau fought to put him in the suit anyway. What happened next didn't just save Robert Downey Jr., it saved Marvel, and it generated more money than anyone in that boardroom could have imagined. But here is the question nobody asks. What did it cost him to get there, and who actually paid the price? Robert John Downey Jr. was born into Hollywood. His father, Robert Downey Sr., was an underground filmmaker who believed in radical creative freedom. He gave his 6-year-old son marijuana on a film set, believing it would create a bond between them. It did. It also created an addiction that would take 30 years to untangle. By 18, RDJ had moved to New York, dropped out of school, and was sleeping on a futon trying to make it as an actor. He was charming, magnetic, and already using. He got his first major role in Less Than Zero in 1987, playing a wealthy young man destroyed by cocaine addiction. The director cast him partly because of the instability he was already showing in real life. Hollywood used his damage as a performance tool before he was old enough to understand what was happening. The film made money. RDJ got noticed, and the industry moved on to the next project, leaving a teenager alone in Los Angeles with a drug habit they had found useful. Here is what people get wrong about the years that followed. They call it a downfall, a spiral, a tragedy of wasted talent. It wasn't. It was a completely predictable outcome for a child who was given drugs by his father, exploited by an industry that monetized his instability, and then left without any structure, support, or accountability when the cameras stopped rolling. This wasn't a personal failure. It was a systemic one, and the system would later take full credit for his recovery without once acknowledging its role in his destruction. Between 1996 and 2001, Robert Downey Jr. was arrested multiple times. Heroin, cocaine, a loaded .357 Magnum in his car. He was found wandering into a neighbor's home in Malibu and fell asleep in their child's bed. He violated parole. He served time at the California Substance Abuse Treatment Facility and state prison. In 2001, he was arrested again after being found with drugs in a hotel room in Palm Springs. He was fired from Ally McBeal the following morning. The show had been his comeback. Now it was over. He was 36 years old, unemployable, uninsurable, and completely alone in the wreckage of a career that the industry had spent 15 years both building and quietly dismantling. At this point, by every Hollywood calculation, the story was over. But here is where the story stops being about Robert Downey Jr. and starts being about 2 other men. Joel Silver was a producer, not a therapist, not a sponsor, not a friend in any conventional sense. But he looked at RDJ and saw something the industry had stopped looking for. He personally insured him for the film Gothica in 2003. No studio would do it. Silver put his own financial exposure on the line for a man the entire industry had written off. He didn't relapse. He showed up every day. He was professional, focused, and extraordinary on screen. Then Jon Favreau made a phone call. In 2007, Favreau was preparing to direct Iron Man for the newly independent Marvel Studios. The studio was betting its entire future on the film. Every executive wanted someone safe, someone whose name on a poster meant money in the bank. Favreau wanted Robert Downey Jr. The argument he made to the Marvel board was not sentimental. It was strategic. He said Tony Stark, a brilliant, arrogant, self-destructive man who builds a weapon and then spends his life trying to make it right, could only be played convincingly by someone who understood self-destruction from the inside. The board said no. Favreau pushed back. The board said the insurance was impossible. Favreau found a way to make it possible. He won. On May 2nd, 2008, Iron Man made $98 million in its opening weekend. By the end end of its run, $585 million worldwide. Marvel was saved. A franchise worth over $25 billion was born. Now here is the part that the celebration always skips. The narrative that emerged, and that RDJ himself has largely endorsed, is one of personal redemption. A man who hit rock bottom, found sobriety, and pulled himself back through sheer willpower. That narrative is not wrong, but it is incomplete. It erases Joel Silver's personal financial guarantee. It erases Favreau's boardroom fight. It erases Susan Levin, now Susan Downey, who refused to date him unless he stayed sober and has managed his career and public image with extraordinary precision ever since. Robert Downey Jr. did not save himself. He was saved by a small group of people who chose to see something in him that the industry had decided to stop looking for. The myth of the self-made resurrection is a more sellable story, but it lets Hollywood off the hook for what it did to him in the first place. Between 2008 and 2019, RDJ appeared in 10 Marvel films. He earned an estimated $435 million from the franchise. He became the highest paid actor in Hollywood for multiple consecutive years. The same industry that had fired him, blacklisted him, and declared him finished was now using his resurrection as proof of its own generosity. Then in 2023, Oppenheimer happened. A role with genuine moral complexity. RDJ won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. His acceptance speech was warm and carefully constructed. He thanked his wife. He thanked Nolan. He thanked the Academy. He did not thank Joel Silver. He did not mention Jon Favreau. There is a version of Robert Downey Jr.'s story that is about personal strength, about choosing sobriety over destruction, about rebuilding from the inside out. That version is real and it deserves to be told. But there is another version, one where a child is handed drugs by his father and a role by an industry that found his instability useful, where that child becomes an adult who cannot stop, cannot be insured, not because he is weak, but because no one ever gave him the tools to be otherwise. And then two men decided to bet on him anyway. We celebrate Robert Downey Jr. as the man who came back from the edge. We rarely ask who was standing at that edge, quietly making sure he didn't fall further. Iron Man told us that one man in a suit could save the world. The real story is quieter than that, and far more human. Some people don't pull themselves up, they are pulled, and the ones who do the pulling rarely get a credit sequence.